I'm Chris Gee. I'm the president of the Snohomish Historical Society. The farm here is this was part of the original Carlson family. There was it kind of split off in branches, but this farm here, I guess you would say the early date on it is in 1890. It started out as a cattle ranch originally, and at one time it was hundreds of acres. It over years was sold off, and then by the time I bought it, it was down to 20 acres. But I added to it again, but there's only so much land available. So it had been a cattle farm by the 1950s. I guess it was going down to just being more like a hobby farm, you'd say. It had some cows, some horses, and then by the 1980s. 70s and 80s, it was mainly horses and with a few cows. And I bought the farm from my 4-H leader. He was my 4-H leader and high school rodeo coach, and I bought it from him in 2003. And he continued to come out and get on a horse every summer and ride around the arena and lick his finger and do a check mark in the air. One more time around, and he had passed away about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago now. And so it's been, for a number of years, it's been more horse oriented than cattle. Different buildings were added, a greenhouse and an indoor arena, and different buildings there. I believe there's, 27 buildings on it now. So it was all a process, 1890 to now. The story behind the buildings goes back a ways. If you're wanting to the beginning, so the buildings, some of the buildings were in parts of Snohomish, and then this building we're in was a general store from 1900 to 1953. And in 1988, the owner of the building was a Sam and Victoria Cook owned the store. They closed it in 53. I believe that's when Sam Cook died. His wife then passed away, and his son donated the building to the Historical Society. And there's a number of backgrounds to the weaver shop, which is also here. It's a replication of a weaver shop, and it was built in 89 for the 1989 centennial. And there was a number of buildings in what we call the Pioneer Cemetery. So when these were moved there, the weaver shop was built from the remains of E.C. Ferguson's original mansion, and the mansion burned in the 40s. The wood structure from that was then relocated near the high school, and then in the 80s that building was being demolished, and so then they built the weaver shop out of that. So that was a replica, and then the blacksmith shop was a garage that was in Snohomish, and it was moved to the Pioneer Village, and then it was also then constructed to look like a blacksmith shop. It actually was a garage, and it was a service garage of sorts. And there were several other buildings too they were all moved there in the late 80s, late 88, early 89, and then the grand opening was in 89. And then when the village closed, the final closing was in 2007, and the buildings were going to be torn down. And so with some of the buildings, I moved them out here and restored them and opened them back up for school tours and that. We do still do tours today. We're limited in this time right now with COVID, but depending on where the guidelines are with that from month to month, that's how we go right now. But yes, they're used for school tours and tours from groups from Children's Hospital, and there's some veterans groups that come out, and then just general. It's not limited to school groups, but we do many different tours through the buildings, and then decorate them for the different holidays. And so the buildings were a bit of work to restore, all of them, but I decided that it was a worthwhile thing to do. So it was a bit of a cost, but so I did work on the buildings. I also hired a lot done, and because it's obviously a little hard to do all of it, but it was a bit of work. They all got quite a facelift, foundation, roofs, electrical, stuff like that, and they're hopefully set for many years to come with general maintenance. So the future plans for the buildings are to use them as they are, and actually even add to the group of buildings, and continue the school tours and general tours to the public. The farm is open. It's been on barn tours, and because it's a working farm with lessons and trail rides and summer camp and that, so we get a lot of people through. The buildings are always available to be toured, and so school groups are a big draw to the buildings. Usually, not in this past year, but and so the plans are to continue that for years to come.